Okay, let's bang into this one here real quick. So I'm still figuring out OBS to deal with all the shenanigans going on here, so forgive me if this gets a little awkward at times as I figure out this program here. But what I want to go over today is the three main types of sponsorship that you will run into as you pursue some support from brands around the industry. How the fuck do people do these intros? It's so awkward. Anyway, as I figured this out, we're going to get things going here, and I'll get a little smoother as we get into some more of the videos. But for right now, the three main types of sponsorship that you're going to run into out in the real world in your search for sponsorship. So what you're going to find right away, we'll just jump right into it. The first type of sponsorship, of course, being discount sponsorships. So essentially what that means is a company or brand that you approach will see what you're offering or what you're doing, and they'll offer you some sort of discount. Now, usually it starts around like 10% off of MSRP, which for those of you that don't know is the manufacturer suggested retail price. Pretty much nobody online actually sells stuff at MSRP. It's usually below. So what you'll usually find is that they'll say like, oh yeah, we'll give you a discount on buying our product. We're going to talk a little bit in more detail at the end why that's something to keep a close eye on, but this is a good way to get your foot in the door and find a few sponsors, especially if it was a brand that you respect and that you were going to buy something from anyway. That can be an awesome way to get a little bit of a discount and get your foot in the door. One of the things that you need to realize is that those companies are not necessarily risking a whole lot by doing that. They're still selling you the product, and even if they sell it to you at cost, they might not make the money that they would have if you paid full price, but it's not necessarily costing them anything. So the idea there is that they'll give you a discount on their products or services, and then of course they will ask for you to do things in return. So this, just kind of like most other sponsorships, is going to be in the area of social media promotion, videos, photos, logos on the car or on your suit or your website, any of that stuff. Oftentimes this is done without a contract. So usually they'll just do it on like a handshake deal, or if you're doing it over the phone or, email or what have you, oftentimes they'll just say like, yeah, no problem, man. We'll cut you a deal and you can order whatever you need. That's great. But what I want to caution you against is getting too excited about this, because what ultimately happens is you end up doing a lot of work for a discount. So one thing I want to advise everyone is to make sure that even though 10% sounds great, or even like 40%, which is usually across many industries considered wholesale, that's essentially what they would sell to a vendor or like a shop for, is 40% off, so that shop can then mark it up. That's a common number, but it changes from every company. So if they offer you a 40% discount off of MSRP, that may sound awesome, but we're going to get into why that might not necessarily be a great thing for you in the long run. It can be a good way to open the door to build a relationship with a company, but it's your responsibility to know that that's a brand that you want to grow with. So if it's a brand that you really don't use or don't care about, and you're not genuinely excited about, a good rule of thumb, no matter what sponsorship level they propose, is don't get involved with the company you don't believe in. If you have to BS and lie about products that you don't really believe in, or a company that you don't really like, it shows, and people will know that. And that is, trust me when I said it's not a good way to go. You don't want to have to BS your way through anything. I would turn that down no matter what the deal was if you don't actually believe in it. So do your homework. Make sure it's a company that you want to actually be involved in. You do want to, if you do take a discount sponsorship, it's great to build a relationship, but again, you got to make sure it's a company you really want to build a relationship with. And oftentimes these companies are smaller, and they may not have the marketing budgets to do some other partnerships that the larger ones that we'll get into here shortly. And sometimes, especially if it's your first time dealing with this company, they want to see what you're capable of, so they might give you a discount and minimize their risk. But that can quickly, as long as you prove yourself to them, that can quickly turn into a number of different things. That can turn into bigger discounts. That can turn into swag to give away. That can turn into them sharing your posts and shouting you out through their social media channels, et cetera, to help you grow. That can turn into a lot of things. But up front, you want to make sure that you chat with them and say, hey, this is what I am willing to provide or what I can provide. But I also have some expectations. If I'm spending the money on the product, I want to know that if I send you some good content that you're willing to share that. That's very beneficial for you. And to most companies and most marketers that you'll deal with, they appreciate knowing that you understand their side of what they're doing as well. So, to wrap it up, your first type of sponsorship here, that discount sponsorship, where they offer you a discount on their products and services. The second type of sponsorship, the parts and service sponsorship, where they give you for free the parts or provide you service or what have you for free. That is the sponsorship. So basically what you'll find is after you have some discount sponsorship, or once you have a certain level of a program, you'll find pretty quickly that companies are willing to send you product. Of course, with strings attached. They expect things from it. These sponsorships often have contracts attached to them. Sometimes they're very strict contracts. They say, like, well, we expect you to run this size vinyl in this position on the car, and you have to have this, you have to put this on your fire suit, and right on down the line. And they have a lot of things. Well, if they're giving you a free product that's, if they're building like a roll cage for you, right? Like that's a big investment. If they're sending you 10 wheels, great. If they're going to give you 50 tires, that's probably worth it. But if they're going to send you a t-shirt and then they tell you that you got to run all this stuff, I mean, you got to weigh what they're providing you with what they expect from you. So that kind of comes back to that same, make sure that it's valuable for both parties. Again, they do have contracts oftentimes. Sometimes they'll be real strict like that. Other times they'll be a little bit less involved. They'll just say like, well, we'll provide you this for this amount of money, and we expect you to do 3 social media posts. Whatever, right? They might be kind of loose like that. Each company's a little bit different. Each marketing manager, whoever makes the decision, or as I like to call them, decision makers at these brands or at these companies rather, will be a little bit different in how they like to handle things. But one of the things that you need to make sure is that the contract, if they have you sign one, that it specifies not only what they expect you to do, but what they expect, or what you can expect them to do. So make sure it clearly spells out what you're going to do and what they are going to do as well. You just want to cover yourself. Particularly, you don't want to have a sponsor, a company come back and say, oh, well, we didn't, I don't remember what we did for you, right? You want to be able to take that contract maybe the following year and go back and say, this is what we did last year. Is there a way that we can up this? I mean, you were pleased with what I did, and I'd like to move forward with something a little more aggressive. So make sure that if they're going to sell you a body kit for cost, which might be $500 instead of $900, make sure that you get that in a contract so that you can show them later and say, hey, how about a free kit this year? How about like $200? Like, you always want to be making forward progress. So get it in writing, and make sure that they also are expected to do some things like share posts and do shout outs and whatever you can get them to agree that's going to be beneficial for both parties. It's a partnership, and that's why I actually prefer the term partner instead of sponsor. But That being said, the other big step is you really, really got to make sure that you do the math and make sure it's worth it for you. There's an awful lot of companies that will take advantage of how many people reach out to them about sponsorship, and it makes sense. Why wouldn't they? They have so many people asking for a discount or free stuff or whatever it may be, and if they can get a bunch of marketing out of it, for essentially next to nothing, why wouldn't they? So you can't really blame them for that, but you got to make sure it's worth it to do it. So what you have to do is you got to go in and say, okay, they expect me to do one social media post a week. And that's 51, 52 weeks for the year. I got to do that. Now it's going to take me time to type those up and to take the photos and edit the photos or edit the videos or do whatever. Add in your time. How much time is that going to take? And then divide all that into what they're giving you. And if you're making, oftentimes I'll find when I have proposals like that from companies, I'll find that it's actually less than minimum wage to do all these things, and that really at a certain point isn't worth it. I'd much rather just spend the extra money or deal without the product and not have to worry about all the extra work that's involved. So that's a decision you got to make. And that's why they can often end up in the long run costing you more. Again, it's a good way to get your foot in the door, to build a relationship with a company if it starts at that level. But oftentimes you'll find yourself going from a discount sponsorship and moving up to a product sponsorship. One of the great things about a lot of companies that do product sponsorships is that they will often have a team of people or drivers or athletes, what have you, brand ambassadors, whatever, that they work with on a regular basis. And so you need to make sure that you have access to those people so that you guys can work together. So for example, one of the things that I did, I worked with, Dark Horse Customs, as you can see here, but in the past I've worked with Graham's Performance. And Graham's has a ton of good products, but here they're also a sister company of Skunk 2, which is a really popular company for like Hondas and Acuras and a lot of imports, and they do a ton of drag racing stuff. Now that's not my world, but they have a lot of good team members, and they have a lot of different products that might not necessarily fit for me. They've been doing a lot of stuff with Mustangs lately, and so for me, what that allowed me to do was reach out to the people they worked with and other athletes or drivers, what have you, and we could cross promote each other, and we could get together and do contests together, and we got together and shared posts on our social medias to like get the word out about each other. We would go support each other in any way we can. Those are great ways to build. It's also a good way to network and get your name out there across different realms of motorsport as well. So when you're dealing with those sponsorships, just absolutely make sure that you have access to those people through that company. It's rare that you don't, but sometimes that will happen. So just double check. And the final type of sponsorship, of course, is the financial sponsor. Now, obviously, this is the sponsorship that everybody wants. Essentially, they'll provide you funding to run your program. That can be anywhere from $50, $20, all the way up to, NASCAR Formula One teams are bringing in contracts that are literally hundreds of millions of dollars. So that can be just unbelievable. But if you're thinking that a sponsorship in the area of $10,000 would make your season, those are absolutely achievable for just about anybody. The thing is how you approach it, how you find it, how you handle yourself, and how you present yourself professionally, and you pretty much can find one of those. It's just a matter of time and putting in the effort. But those are the best ones because, quite frankly, they provide funding to run your program. You're in charge of the funding, which is a double-edged sword because it's great. You get to choose where it goes, but you also have to deliver on the things that you promised to deliver for them. So you have to make sure that some of that money goes towards what we call deliverables, or whatever they say they needed. So if you get 10 grand from a sponsor to run whatever series you're running, it's probably not a bad idea to take a few $100s and put some of that towards promoting the posts that you do specifically for them so that their posts get the most engagement. Oftentimes you'll find that in contracts, but some of that stuff you want to make sure that you take good care of your sponsors. These usually have very thorough contracts. They're very clear about what they expect from you, and you, at the same time, need to be very clear about what you expect from them as well. And key here is you got to be organized. You got to keep track of how every dollar is spent, and that way when you come to them at the end of the year, you can say, here's what I did, here was what we accomplished, it was a great season, couldn't have done it without you. This is what we were able to accomplish for the money that you invested, and this is how it's going to affect you. And you need to go back to them at the end of the year and say, here is your ROI, or your return on investment, and break that down for them so that they can see, yes, it was worth it to invest in this person. Again, got to be very organized. They're few and far between, and I only say that because for every 100 applications or emails you send out, you may get 10 back, and for every 10 you get back, one of them might be interested in doing something at all on even a discount level sponsorship, and out of every 10 discount sponsorships you get, one might do a product sponsorship, and out of every 10 of those you get back, one might be willing to give you some money. So it's really, really difficult to get these, and I shouldn't say it's difficult, but it just takes time. So make sure you don't just, don't hear a couple no's and then give up. I can't tell you how many times I've heard no from companies. You have to keep trucking through. Nothing will humble you like dealing with marketers. And the other thing too, you got to be creative, right? So you want to make sure that not only are you using typical things like logos on cars, social media posts, yada, yada, blah, blah. Everybody does that. That's not special. But what you can do is you can talk to that company and you can say, what do you need? Maybe they need some sort of corporate incentive program, and like a lot of NASCAR, a lot of motorsports people in general will do this. They'll have an incentive program for their employees where they get to go out like VIP to a NASCAR experience for a day. Like if they sell the most pizza, they get to go to, they work for Papa John's or whoever, and they get to go see Leah Pritchett drive at the NHRA for a day, right? So you can do things like that. You can go, if you're really good with a particular product. I know, like, for example, there's a team in Seattle. I don't know how much they want me sharing, so I won't say who it is. There's a Pro-Am and Pro-2 drift team out of Seattle that's doing some VR stuff. And that's been huge for them, and that's because it's different. They have a VR rig in their pit, and people can come and play. They can drive the car. They can drive that car on that track and really get to experience it, and that's pretty cool. So stuff like that that's different, that sets you apart, is huge. And last but not least, these can be what's called non-endemic. Endemic sponsorships are companies and brands that are involved in your industry. So if you're in motorsports, like most of you probably are, that's going to be companies like Graham's Performance, Dark Horse Customs, VP Racing Fuels, Bridgestone Tires. It's going to be any car or automotive company. Non-endemic sponsors are companies that have absolutely nothing to do with the automotive industry. Best Buy, Orville Redenbacher's Popcorn, Apple Computer. I mean, whatever it is, there's going to be companies, there's a lot of companies that have nothing to do with that industry, and those are called non-endemic sponsorships. This is where it gets really interesting because it opens up the whole world to you. The challenge for them, or the challenge for you rather, is to show them the value in what you're doing, because unlike endemic sponsors or internal companies that already see the value in motorsports, you have to sell the value of motorsports to that company. So they're more difficult to get, but usually a non-endemic sponsor will bring in something very, very valuable like money or exposure. So there you have it. Those are the three types of sponsorships. Essentially, you've got discount sponsors. They'll give you discounts. You have product sponsors or service sponsors that'll give you free product and services. An example of that would be like a tire company giving you free tires, or a local alignment shop doing free alignments for you. That's a service they provide. And then, of course, you have financial sponsorships where they give you money to run your program. So those are the main three types of sponsorships that you'll find. There are a couple others, but that are definitely worth mentioning. Product development is a big one. So if you find a company that's developing a new product for your particular vehicle or for what you do, or maybe it's a camera, I don't know, whatever it may be, and they want to test it out and put it in the environment, and you can help them. They might give you that product, but you need to provide them, reviews and feedback and data and whatnot, so they can improve their product and develop it and then maybe release. Could be in beta, right? So maybe they're just testing it or whatever, but that's a product development sponsorship. There's what's called true sponsorship, or what I call true sponsorship. That's essentially where somebody gives you money with no expectation of a return. So that's essentially like a fun run or a charity. Remember when you used to do like fundraisers for school, and people would just be like, yeah, I'll give you this money and I don't expect anything in return. Yay. That's awesome. But those usually don't last that long. So if you have opportunities to do that, my recommendation would be to keep that opportunity open and on the table. But try to make sure that you save that for when you really need it. Like if there's a big opportunity that comes up and you've got a family member that maybe said, yeah, I can give you 10 grand. Don't take that just because. Maybe wait until you have an opportunity to go race in Europe in some series that could open the world of motorsports to you. And then it's like, okay, now I could really use that 10 grand. So be smart about it. Don't spend 10 grand to go buy an autocross car that you're not even an autocross car, but any car, just go flog around with. Like, don't waste it. If you have somebody willing to do that, make sure you go the extra mile, take good care of them, no matter who it is, family, friend, neighbor, whatever, somebody that just happens to believe in you, a benefactor. Take good care of them and use it for something that is really, really going to benefit you in the long run. And then you also have expertise sponsorship. So for example, like, I'm a big fan of MotoIQ.com. Mike Kojima is just, those guys are amazing. Him and Eric Sue, I think is how you say his last name. But those guys, they're incredible. They write great articles, and they also do technical advising for a bunch of different companies. I know back when I was running around on the FD circuit, Mike was doing technical advising, I think for a couple different companies, but I know he was helping with KW suspension. So an example of that would be somebody like Mike, who has a ton of technical expertise, might come out and help you set up your car and say, look, I think if you do this, it's gonna, if we make changes here, we can really improve the performance of this. Oftentimes that, of course, comes with, they want you to run their product, but that can be great, because if you can get somebody that's willing to devote expertise and they know more than you do and they can help you do better, that is awesome. Just make sure that you take good care of those people as well. Media sponsorship, this is pretty common, especially in the drifting world, where you have people taking pictures and videos, and a lot of photographers want to be credited when you share their work. That's awesome. Do it. That's how they make their living. That's how they grow their brands. If they're willing to give you content, make sure you credit them. I can't stress that enough. I think all of us at some point will make a mistake of forgetting to properly credit a photographer or an artist of some sort. But do whatever you can to make it right. You do not want the reputation of being the guy that doesn't appreciate the media. Otherwise, you will never get coverage ever. So take good care of the photographers and the video guys. They are going to be your bread and butter very, very quickly. So if you find one that you really like and you want to work something out where he does all of your content for your events, and you, I don't know, give him some ride-alongs, or you put a sticker on the car, you help promote him as well, you guys can work together to grow each other's brands. That's awesome. But that's a media sponsorship that can get as big as like BuzzFeed having a dedicated motorsports section, which is never going to happen. But if they did, that would be something where it can get pretty big. And then of course you have title sponsorship as well. And title sponsorship is basically when you have like a non-endemic company come in and say, okay, what's it going to cost for you to run this whole season? And when you look at like Leah Pritchett, the drag racer, that her title sponsor is Papa John's. And long story short, they basically came in and they said, what's it going to cost for you to run this program? Okay, it's going to cost me, whatever, $10 million to run this per year. And the company says, okay, cool, we'll do that. But here's what we want in exchange. They want their colors on everything. They want the car the proper colors. They want your driving suit the proper colors. The website's got to have it. You got to do promotions for them. If you follow all these big name drivers, you'll see that their title sponsors are everything. Chris Forsberg, NOS, right? Always doing stuff with NOS and Nissan that's beyond drifting. Vaughn Gittin Jr., Ford, and Monster Energy, constantly doing stuff with them that has nothing to do with drifting. There's all kinds of things, but the title sponsorship is really like they give you the money that you need to run the program that you need to run. But there's a lot that goes with it, and you're going to be really, really busy. So those are essentially the main types of sponsorship that you'll run into, the three main ones, of course, being discount, product, and financial. They are very, very different, and one of the most important things that you need to remember, discount sponsorships seem great, especially when you're new in the sponsorship game, but be very wary of them because ultimately it's pretty easy to get kind of taken to the cleaners, so to speak, in a discount sponsorship. So what can happen is a company says, you know what, we'll give you this product at 40% off. Now, most people, including myself, I've done this, would say like, hell yeah, I'm on board. But what you need to realize is that what they're doing is they're saying, we're not really going to invest anything in you. We're just going to give it to you for cost. So there's really no motivation for them to see you succeed. I'm going to do a whole nother video on this in the future, but what I want to point out is that oftentimes companies do this because it's a win-win for them, but it undermines the shops and their vendors, and really in the end doesn't honestly help you that much either, because now you're required to do all this extra work. So I'm kind of at a point now where I would rather just pay the extra money and not have the responsibility that goes into sponsorships, because sponsorships are hard work. So keep that in mind when you're going forward with this. If you guys ever have any questions about some of this stuff, just leave a comment down below or shoot me a message. I'm happy to answer anything that I can. If this was helpful for you, do me a favor, hit the like button. If it wasn't helpful, hit the dislike button. Either one helps. Yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions about sponsorships in particular or how to pursue them, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out. If this was helpful, that is where... I look like I have a tiny head. So, yeah. That's a terrible way to end it.